dollars just don't stack up for those businesses if they open and don't charge the surcharge when you've got a 250% loading on the wages for the staff on those days.
Look, I mentioned from time to time that I do have a small cafe, and I am absolutely on board with this. I understand it. We don't open on Sundays. We don't open on public holidays because not only wouldn't we make money, we would actually be losing money because of that those extra costs. And the data tells us that wage costs have risen 21% in recent years. What sort of impact is that having on day-to-day operations for venue operators?
Well, it's having a huge impact, Ron, and that's just the increase that's allocated through increases to the minimum wage and compulsory superannuation. So that doesn't take account of wage cost pressures that are also pushing up rates because we need to pay people more to get them to do the job. And all of that wage cost pressure means that our businesses now pay out 48 cents in the dollar. For every dollar they earn, 48 cents goes out the door on wages. That means businesses are operating on a wafer-thin margin and they need to do everything they can to keep those wage costs down and keep some profitability in their businesses.
You see, the problem is, I mean, I say this all the time, how much more can I charge for a cup of coffee? I can't charge you $10 for a cup of coffee. I'm stuck at whatever it is, around $4.50. And it's not just the wages. There's a whole lot of other challenges. Prices are just going through the roof. What are you seeing out there as far as other charges and cost burdens are concerned?
But the situation you describe in relation to coffee, Ron, is absolutely true across the board with all sorts of products. You just can't charge what it costs to buy the product. The cost of goods is going up dramatically as well. The cost of energy, the cost of rentals, you name it. All of those costs are going up. So businesses have to find different ways to do what they do, ordering through QR codes, delivering to the table, all sorts of technology inputs that can be changed among a whole range of other things that businesses have to do to be more efficient because they can't survive just doing what we used to do.
Look, it's an interesting thing. I was talking to Troy Dodds, who is with the Western Sydney Weekend newspaper out of Penrith earlier in the program this morning, and he said that it's an interesting thing that you're still seeing cafes full of customers at a time when things are supposedly so tight. But when you have a look at it, it seems to be the high-end restaurants that are suffering the most at the moment. They're closing their doors time and time again, whereas the lower end of the market still seems to be surviving, even with those wafer-thin margins.
Ron, the reality is that businesses are still experiencing the same amount of visitation. That is, we've still got the same amount of bums on seats. What's happening is that consumers are spending less when they're going out.
Exactly.
So rather than having two main courses, they might share a main course and order some sides. They might share a dessert or not have an entree. Those sort of things mean that they're pushing down their average spend, still going out and enjoying the experience, but they're self-imposing a limit on the amount they'll spend.
Look, even though I know the necessity for surcharges, I still do balk at them a little bit. Now, some customers are pushing back against those weekend surcharges, public holiday surcharges. What would you say to them about the necessity for them?
Well, again, it's back to the point I started with, and that is the only other alternative is to close. And so if you want the businesses to be open, and so many consumers are wanting businesses to be open. I mean, myself on Anzac Day evening, I rang 5 restaurants to try and get a booking before I found somewhere that was open. And you know, I was very pleased when that restaurant was open. And I don't mind paying surcharge if I can get the service that I need on those days.
How do we deal with this? What sort of policy or support would you like to see from government to ease the burden on small hospitality businesses?
Look, anything that the governments and policymakers can do would help. Lowering tax rates, providing more take-home pay for the same amount of money that we're paying out in wages, a whole range of regulatory burdens lifted. All of those things help us add to the bottom line. And really that's what it's all about. It's about businesses being sustainable, having their cost base reduced. We're not saying we want to pay people less. We're just saying we want to have an environment where we can have the business sustainable.
And of course, the unions are pushing for less casualised workforce. But, as a hospitality venue, you can't get by without your casuals. There's nothing else you can do.
Well, there's not, unless we impose a rule that every Australian has to eat out 9 to 5. So I'm not sure that that's going to happen, Ron. We need to have an environment where the busy periods are the periods that we need to staff our businesses. So that's not going to work, and there's only 2 days in every weekend. So there's not much we can do about that, unfortunately.
For smaller bricks and mortar businesses, hospitality businesses, how does the takeaway industry affect them? The Ubers and the eats that you can order over the phone and have it delivered to your front door. What impact is that having on the small hospitality businesses that are there as shop fronts?
Look, it's adding to their turnover on. It means that they've got an extra string to their bow. It's fairly low margin business because every one of those services has themselves a surcharge that they levy. So businesses aren't getting the same margin out of that business, but it is adding to volume. And it is adding to the amount of revenue that got coming through the door. Yeah,
look, it's tough times out there for both customers and operators. I totally get that. Thank you for coming on and explaining why we need these little surcharges. We should embrace them rather than balk against them. Thank you so much. Restaurant and Catering Association National President John Hart. John, thank you.
Thanks, Ron.